For years, my backyard felt more like a battlefield. Every spring would start with so much hope. I'd drop a small fortune on bags of what I thought was the best organic soil, premium fertilizers, and heirloom seeds that promised overflowing baskets of produce. I'd till, I'd compost, I'd carefully tuck my seedlings in, dreaming of all the fresh vegetables I'd soon be eating. But that dream always fizzled out by midsummer. My soil was just lifeless. It was either dry and cracked like a desert floor, or it turned into a dense, muddy bog after a rain. Water would just pool on top, never seeming to get down to the roots where it was needed. My tomato plants would give me a few small cracked fruits before the blight took over. My pepper plants would pop out one, maybe two, sad-looking peppers, and then just quit. My lettuces? They'd bolt at the first hint of warm weather. It was more than just frustrating, it was a soul-crushing cycle. I'd watch my neighbors, who seemed to be putting in half the effort, pulling up giant carrots and buckets of potatoes, while I was left with withered leaves and a massive sense of defeat. I tried every guaranteed fertilizer on the market. I spent hours scrolling through forums, trying to figure out what I was doing wrong. Was it a nutrient deficiency? Some invisible pest? I was convinced I just wasn't born with a green thumb and was destined to buy my veggies from the store. I was honestly ready to pave the whole thing over and buy a patio set. Just as I was about to throw in the trowel for good, I found this old dog-eared gardening book at a thrift store. It didn't drone on about NPK ratios or chemical fertilizers. Instead, it talked about the life in the soil. It described this invisible universe, a bustling city of microscopic critters that work in partnership with plants. It called them soil microbes. That was my light bulb moment. For years, I had been obsessed with feeding my plants. I was giving them fertilizer, I was giving them water, but I was totally ignoring the real engine of the garden, the soil itself. The book explained that healthy soil isn't just dirt, it's a living ecosystem, teeming with billions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms. These tiny guys are the real gardeners. They're the ones who feed the plants, protect them from diseases, and build a healthy home for their roots. I realized my soil wasn't just poor, it was basically dead. The constant tilling, the chemical fertilizers I'd used in desperation, the inconsistent composting. I had essentially sterilized my garden bed. I had wiped out the very life that was supposed to make it thrive. The secret wasn't some new fertilizer. The secret was to stop trying to force my plants to grow, and instead focus on creating an environment where this hidden microbial world could do its job. It wasn't about feeding the plant, it was about feeding the soil. Now, soil microbiome sounds like something you'd need a PhD to understand, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Think of your garden soil as a huge underground metropolis, and in this city, you've got all sorts of workers with critical jobs. First up, you have the decomposers and chefs. These are mostly bacteria and fungi. When you add compost or leaves to your garden, these microbes are the ones who break it all down. They're like master chefs, turning raw ingredients into a nutrient-rich buffet that your plants can easily feast on. They unlock key nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus that are otherwise trapped in the soil. Next are the architects and engineers. This crew, especially the fungi, builds the structure of your soil. Mycorrhizal fungi, for instance, form these huge networks of tiny threads, way finer than plant roots, that act like a superhighway, stretching the plant's reach to find water and nutrients from far and wide. Meanwhile, the gunk left behind by all this microbial life helps form soil aggregates, which act like a sponge, helping the soil hold water and air. That's what keeps it from becoming a compacted brick. Then you have the bodyguards. A healthy soil microbiome is packed with good guys that act as a natural security force for your plants. Beneficial microbes like Bacillus bacteria and Trichoderma fungi can outcompete and fight off disease-causing pathogens in the soil, protecting your plants from root rot and other common problems. They basically form a protective bubble around the roots. And finally, you've got the factory workers. Some bacteria, like Rhizobium, are just miracle workers. They set up shop on the roots of plants like beans and peas, and they pull nitrogen, a nutrient that plants crave for green growth, right out of the air and turn it into plant food. It's like having a tiny fertilizer factory hooked right up to your plants. So when you put it all together, you see that a plant isn't growing alone. It's the CEO of a massive underground company, and its success depends entirely on the health and diversity of its microscopic workforce. So, how did I bring my dead soil back to life? I didn't buy some pricey miracle product. I brewed my own microbe-activating cocktail, and honestly, it's ridiculously easy. It's often called an actively aerated compost tea, and it uses just a few simple ingredients to repopulate your soil with beneficial organisms. Here's what you'll need: a 5-gallon bucket, an aquarium air pump with an air stone. This is non-negotiable. It provides the oxygen that lets the good aerobic microbes multiply like crazy. About 4 gallons of dechlorinated water. If you're on city water, just let it sit out for 24 hours. The chlorine will evaporate and you don't want it killing off your new microbial friends. A starter culture, this is the key. You need about 2 cups of the best quality living compost you can find. Worm castings are absolute gold for this. Put it all in a porous bag, like a clean sock or a mesh bag. Microbe food. Just 1 or 2 tablespoons of unsulfured blackstrap molasses. It's pure sugar, the perfect energy drink to kickstart a microbial breeding frenzy. Here's the process, step by step. Set up your brewer. Fill the bucket with your dechlorinated water. Drop the air stone in the bottom and fire up the pump. You want to see a good rolling boil of bubbles. Add the food. Pour the molasses into the water and give it a stir. The bubbles will keep it mixed from here. Add the microbes, put your compost-filled sock into the bucket and let it hang in the water. I just drape it over a stick laid across the top. Every now and then, give the bag a little squeeze to push more of the good stuff out into the water. Let it brew. Now just let it bubble away for 24 to 36 hours. In that time, the microbes are having a feast on the molasses and using all that oxygen to reproduce like mad. You're creating a brew that is teeming with beneficial life. Application. This stuff is alive, so you want to use it right away, within a few hours of turning off the pump. You can dilute it with more dechlorinated water, maybe 1 part tea to 5 or 10 parts water, to make it stretch further. Use it as a soil drench, pouring it generously around the base of every plant. Give the soil a good soak. Try to do this in the early morning or evening when the sun isn't so harsh on your new microbial army. I'll be honest, I applied my first batch of this tea with a whole lot of skepticism. But within a week, I started seeing little things. The yellowish leaves on my pepper plants started turning a deeper green. The soil itself, which was usually cracked and dry, looked darker and actually held onto moisture longer after watering. By week 2, the changes were impossible to ignore. My plants just looked happy. They were standing taller, their stems were thicker, and I was seeing new growth everywhere. It was like they had finally woken up. But it was in the weeks that followed that the transformation became truly incredible. My zucchini plants, which used to give me 1, maybe 2 puny fruits, were now churning out giant zucchinis almost overnight. My tomato plants were covered in clusters of perfect red fruit. My bush beans were so heavy with pods I was worried the branches would snap. The difference was staggering. I went from harvesting barely enough for a side dish to having countertops overflowing with produce. I was giving away bags of vegetables to my neighbors, the same ones I used to envy. It truly felt like my harvest had tripled. And it all started in just a few weeks, all because I stopped focusing on the plant and started nurturing the invisible world of life beneath it. If this has opened your eyes to the world beneath your feet, and if you're tired of struggling with a garden that just won't perform, make sure you subscribe. We're all about sharing secrets for working with nature, not against it. My journey from a frustrated gardener to having more zucchini than I knew what to do with is proof that anyone can get these results. And now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried to boost the life in your soil? Have you made compost tea? Share your stories, your successes, your questions in the comments below. Let's share what works. Looking back, it's wild to think I was so close to just quitting. My garden isn't a source of frustration anymore. It's a source of joy, abundance, and a constant reminder of how incredibly powerful nature is. The biggest lesson I've learned is that the secret to a great garden isn't in a bottle of chemicals or some complicated feeding chart. The secret is life itself. It's the billions of invisible allies working 24/7 in your soil. By brewing this simple cocktail, all I really did was get out of the way and let nature do its thing. You don't need a green thumb to have an amazing garden. You just need living soil. And the best part is, you have the power to create it. It's simple, it's cheap, it's sustainable, and it's how gardening was always meant to be, a partnership with the incredible living world in your own backyard. Thank you for stopping by, and please don't forget to hit that subscribe button.